Dear chosen ones, have you ever felt the tension shift the moment your name was mentioned? Like the air got heavier, the energy in the room got tighter, and people started fidgeting without you saying a word? That wasn't your imagination. That was the weight of your presence, the force of your truth, entering a space where falsehoods were already trembling. They thought burying the truth about you would keep it silent. But truth doesn't die in the dirt. It roots. And when you're chosen, even what's buried begins to bloom in places they swore would never hold life. They didn't just lie about how they felt. They lied with intention. They built entire performances, alliances, and reputations around a false version of you. But what happens when the spotlight of divine justice hits the stage? The set collapses. The script unravels. The audience begins to see. They weren't wrestling with your personality. They were at war with the reflection you activated. Because when a chosen one enters the room, the shadows have no place to hide. And now, the silence is broken. The storm has arrived, and every flash of lightning bears your name. Before we dive into the truth they tried to bury, I want to take a moment to thank every single one of you who has supported this message, whether through encouragement, your presence, or through super thanks. Your generosity is felt deeply, and I'm beyond grateful. But even if you've never donated a cent, I still thank you from my heart. Your energy here means everything. You are seen, you are appreciated, and this space wouldn't be the same without you. You were never forgotten. You were hidden for revelation. What felt like rejection was redirection. And now that the smoke has cleared, the truth is standing tall in the place where gossip once echoed. Their lies have become the trap they now stumble through. Your presence, the very energy you carry without effort, is a mirror they can't unsee. And now, the universe is done playing quiet. It's revealing everything. The fake alliances, the quiet betrayals, the whispered slander, all of it. Not to shame them, but to elevate you. So if you've ever been the one sitting quietly while your name was passed around like gossip fuel, if you've ever sensed the envy but couldn't explain the tension, if you've ever felt the truth clawing through the cracks of a false story someone built around you, this message is for you. Because what they tried to contain has now become a wildfire. And you didn't spark it. You were just the match that reminded the world how flammable their lies were. Drop a 777 in the comments if you've ever been the one they tried to silence, only for the silence to become your greatest confirmation. Because now we're about to go step by step through the blast they thought they could hide. How their lies about you lit the fuse, and how the universe flipped every false word back in your favor. You're not the storm. You're what comes after it. The calm, the clarity, the rise. Let's begin. God's chosen ones. They lied about you, and it caused an explosive fight behind your back. Number 1. When the mask slips, the universe strikes. Chosen one, have you ever walked into a room and felt the temperature shift, not because of the weather, but because your presence disrupted something spiritual? You didn't come in loud. You didn't come in arrogant. You just showed up as yourself, and yet the energy cracked. Why? Because your authenticity is dangerous in a world addicted to pretense. They didn't lie to protect you. No, they lied to protect themselves from the reflection you held up to their soul. You became a mirror they couldn't stand to look into. You didn't even say a word, but your very existence confronted them with truths they've been running from for years. And so, they chose the easy way. Twist the narrative. Lie about your intentions. Manipulate your character. Why? Because if they can shrink you in the eyes of others, they don't have to deal with how small they feel next to your light. But chosen one, hear this. Your light isn't accidental. It's ancestral. It's divine. It's a weapon forged in silence and obedience. They tried to speak behind your back, but forgot one thing. The universe is not deaf. When they lit a fire of gossip behind closed doors, they didn't realize the smoke would rise into the spiritual realm. And God, He doesn't need receipts. He is the receipt. For nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest, nor is anything secret that will not be known and come to light. Luke 8:17. That's why it exploded. That's why the tension built until it burst into confrontation, because pressure from lies must always find a release. Have you noticed how some people suddenly start falling out with each other the moment you're no longer around? How relationships collapse that once seemed unshakable? That wasn't your fault. That was divine pressure bursting the seams of an illusion that could no longer hold your name without distortion. Take Whitney Houston, for example, one of the most gifted voices of her generation, yet surrounded by people who couldn't handle the brilliance of her soul. Her glow exposed the insecurities in others, and many chose to lie, manipulate, or take advantage, rather than confront what her light revealed about their own shadows. Just like you, she was both celebrated and sabotaged, often by the same people. Have you ever asked yourself why you make people uncomfortable even when you're kind? Why you get resistance even when you're silent? Why your mere presence draws out secrets others thought they buried? That's not a coincidence. That's the calling. Because when you're chosen, your energy becomes a spiritual MRI scan. Hidden conditions surface, fake smiles twitch. The lies they told themselves start to rot under the pressure of your truth. You weren't just present, you were the trigger, the signal that something false couldn't survive any longer. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Matthew 5:14. So when they lied about you, twisted your kindness into manipulation, or your strength into arrogance, they weren't just slandering a person. They were fighting the alignment that appointed you. They weren't offended by your behavior. They were terrified of your assignment, because what you carry inside of you isn't ordinary. It's disruptive, it's liberating, and freedom always feels like rebellion to those who are enslaved by illusion. Let's talk about another one, Nelson Mandela. During his imprisonment, lies were spread about him to paint him as dangerous, unstable, unworthy of leadership. But the truth was, he threatened the system, not with violence, but with truth, with conviction, with divine patience. Like you, chosen one, he was the embodiment of a higher frequency, one that eventually broke every chain meant to bind him. And what about the fight that broke out behind your back? You sensed it, didn't you? The shift, the tension. Suddenly people who once sat comfortably around the same table started accusing each other. Why now? Why all at once? Because you left behind a vibration that exposed everything unaligned. You didn't just walk away, you caused the masks to melt. No weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper, and every tongue that shall rise against thee in judgment thou shalt condemn. Isaiah 54:17. Don't think for a second this is just about earthly drama. No, what's happening is cosmic, energetic, divine. The backlash isn't just emotional, it's spiritual balance reasserting itself. And guess what? You were the axis, the epicenter, the soul that tipped the scale back to truth. Look at Meghan Markle, a woman whose presence in a centuries-old system of pretense shook the entire monarchy. The press lied, the system lied. People twisted her image into something she never claimed to be. Why? Because she disrupted the narrative. Because she activated old wounds that the establishment didn't want to heal, only hide. Chosen one, what lies were spoken about you? Who tried to reshape your identity with poisoned words? And here's a deeper question. Why did you believe even a fragment of what they said? Did you forget who you are? You think someone would fight this hard to suppress a nobody? The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Psalm 118, verse 22. They sensed from the beginning that you carried something ancient, something untouchable. They tried to bury it under opinions, gossip, and false narratives, but purpose has a resurrection clause. And now, not only have you survived, you've risen in power. You were never meant to be understood by those who worship illusions. You were never meant to be liked by everyone. That's not your calling. You're not here to blend in. You're here to collapse what's fake. You're here to force honesty out of silence. You're here to call balance into chaos. Remember how Robin Williams made the world laugh while battling invisible storms? His light was misunderstood. His truth made others uncomfortable. And yet, he shifted millions. He was a divine contradiction, just like you. Too deep for shallow waters, too bright for hidden rooms. So next time you're told you're too much, ask, too much for who? The people allergic to truth. The ones who lied to themselves long before they lied about you. They played with divine alignment. They touched energy that wasn't theirs to manipulate. And now they're learning firsthand that tampering with the chosen comes with consequences. What you felt wasn't betrayal. It was initiation. You, chosen one, are the mirror, the correction, the shift. The explosion wasn't chaos. It was divine order roaring back into place. And this is only the beginning. Number 2. Denial doesn't save you when the truth is screaming. Chosen one, how many times have you wondered, did I really imagine it all? How many nights did you question your worth because someone else couldn't handle the weight of who you are? But here's the unfiltered truth. They didn't break you. They shattered the illusion they created about you. And now the pieces are cutting their own hands. They didn't destroy your spirit. They destroyed their version of you, the one they controlled, the one they twisted to fit their comfort zones, the one that stayed silent so they could feel superior. And now they're spiraling, suffocating under the debris of their own denial. Therefore, each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbor, for we are all members of one body. Ephesians 4:25. Let's make this clear. The fight didn't begin because of drama or disagreement. The fight began the moment the truth about you clawed its way back to the surface. The truth they thought they could drown in gossip, bury under fake smiles, and silence with slander. It came back. It rose. And now it wears your face. It glows with every divine flame they tried to extinguish. It walks into rooms before you do. It announces your presence without you saying a word. Take Princess Diana, for example. She was misunderstood, mislabeled, and lied about by a system built on polished appearances. But no amount of denial could suppress her impact. She was love in a place that thrived on strategy, vulnerability in a palace of masks. Her truth outlived the lies, and so will yours. Are you starting to see it now? You weren't the problem. You were the prophecy in motion. They thought you were just a passing emotion, a temporary connection, a moment they could manipulate and forget. But you stayed, not in their lives, but in their minds. You lingered. You imprinted. Your energy carved its initials into the deepest corners of their consciousness. And that's why they panicked. That's why fists clenched, voices cracked, and blame ricocheted around the room like shrapnel, because they didn't just lie about a person, they tried to suppress a spiritual assignment. And now, their fake peace is unraveling in real time. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1:5. Energy doesn't lie, chosen one. They smiled at you and cursed your name behind doors, but now that same energy is turning on them. What they tried to twist is snapping back into truth. What they tried to hide is being broadcast in front of everyone. This isn't karma. This is correction. Think about Kanye West, misunderstood, labeled crazy, pushed out of the narrative he tried to redefine. But the core of his struggle wasn't ego. It was his fight to express a truth the world wasn't ready for. He broke molds. He triggered institutions. He lost favor, yes, but never impact. Like you, chosen one, his presence became impossible to ignore. So, let's get brutally honest. They weren't afraid of you. They were afraid of what acknowledging you would cost them. To admit your power would force them to remove the mask they wear to survive. To love you would have required them to be real in a world where faking it is rewarded. So instead of elevation, they chose escape. Instead of truth, they picked comfort. And now, they're haunted by the warmth they'll never feel again. Have I now become your enemy by telling you the truth? Galatians 4:16. They didn't hate you. They couldn't unfeel you. You left fingerprints on their spirit. And every time your name comes up, the room gets heavy. Not because of your presence, but because of the lie they wrapped around your memory. The truth they buried is now screaming, and it won't let them rest. They scroll through your energy like a ghost story they denied existed, but you were real. You still are. Look at Malcolm X, feared, misquoted, vilified. But years later, even his enemies had to admit he was right. He carried a disruptive truth they tried to silence, but his words became prophecy. His voice became scripture in movements across generations. He was the fire they tried to contain, and the flame only spread. Chosen one, how many times did you shrink to make someone else feel safe? How many times did you lower your volume just so others could maintain their illusion of control? But here's what they didn't count on. Your silence wasn't weakness, it was incubation. And now that silence has turned to thunder, they thought keeping you in the dark would keep your glow suppressed. But light doesn't need an audience to shine. It burns in silence. It grows in solitude, and now it's too bright for their eyes. For we cannot do anything against the truth, but only for the truth. 2 Corinthians 13:8. Their denial didn't delay your rise. It intensified it. It made your return undeniable. You are now the proof that their narrative was false, and every time they hear your name, see your face, or feel your impact, it breaks something in them. Not because you were cruel, but because you were undeniable. Think of Frida Kahlo, a woman whose pain was twisted into weakness, whose identity was mocked and misunderstood, but her truth lived in her art. Her resilience painted itself onto every canvas, and now, long after her death, she's celebrated as one of the most powerful creative voices in history. Her truth outlasted every whisper. So, chosen one, stop crying over people who couldn't carry your truth. Stop mourning bridges that were meant to burn. You weren't abandoned, you were evacuated. God removed you not to punish you, but to prepare the stage for the reveal. And now the reveal is here. Let them sit in the silence they created. Let them wrestle with the weight of the truth they refused to accept. You were never a phase. You were never a mood. You were the reset button to their false reality. And now that button's been pushed hard. They built their world on the lie that you didn't matter. And now that lie is collapsing. You were the threat, not because of what you did, but because of what you carried. You were the light, you were the storm, and now you are the aftermath they can't run from. Let this be your final confirmation. You were never meant to be hidden. You were meant to be revealed. And now that truth is screaming. Let it echo, let it shake, let it remind them of what they tried to bury. Because chosen energy never dies in silence. It multiplies. And all you have to do now is keep rising. Number 3, the fire they buried is burning them from within. Chosen one, Did you ever feel the chill of someone's silence and wonder why it cut so deep? Why did their denial hurt more than their words ever could? You didn't imagine the intensity. You didn't exaggerate the connection. They felt it too. But unlike you, they weren't ready for the truth it carried. They didn't destroy you. They destroyed the false comfort of pretending you didn't matter. They thought pushing you away would make the fire die down. But what they failed to realize is that you weren't the flame. They were. You were just the spark that revealed it. And now that fire is devouring them from the inside out. For our God is a consuming fire. Hebrews 12:29. They believed they could outlast the truth, that if they ignored what they felt, it would fade like a passing mood. But chosen one, you're not a mood, you're a mirror, a revelation, a divine disruption to their illusion of control. And mirrors don't disappear when ignored, they just wait, silently, until the reflection grows too loud to dismiss. Like a live wire buried beneath the floor, their suppressed emotions are shocking them with every step. Every denial is now echoing like thunder in their own mind. They didn't bury peace, they buried pressure. And now every conversation is tight-lipped, every smile forced, every breath heavy. This isn't about you walking away anymore. This is about them being unable to walk away from themselves. Take Jim Carrey as an example. Known for his humor and vibrant personality, yet beneath the surface, he publicly spoke about the inner war between his public image and his authentic self. When the truth began to surface, it wasn't just others he had to face. It was the version of himself he had created to survive. Just like the people who denied you, he had to confront the hidden fire. So, let's tell it plainly, they're not at war with you. They're at war with what your presence activated, with the pieces of themselves they were forced to meet when you walked in. You were the catalyst, but they were the combustion. And now the fire they started is licking at the walls of their false identity. The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately sick. Who can understand it? Jeremiah 17:9. They said you were just a phase. They acted like your presence was forgettable. But if that were true, why does your name still rattle their silence? Why do they flinch when your energy shows up in someone else? Why does their peace evaporate when memories of you surface without warning? Because the mind is not a graveyard. It doesn't bury truth. It holds it. It loops it. And now they are trapped in the very cycle they tried to escape. Think of Amy Winehouse. The world watched her drown in contradiction. Brilliant talent masked by chaos. Vulnerability hidden beneath rebellion. People tried to dismiss her, downplay her genius. But the truth of who she was haunted them long after she was gone. The same happens with you. You aren't their enemy. You are the reflection they fear most. And here's what they'll never admit out loud. It was never easier to lie about you. It was safer, because telling the truth about how deeply you impacted them would have required tearing off a mask they spent years perfecting. It would have forced them to expose the very insecurities they've been hiding under smiles, power plays, and emotional distance. So they buried it. They lied. But what they buried wasn't dead. It was dormant. Now that truth is rising, the denial that once protected them has become a cage. And with every memory, every echo of your voice, every energy that resembles yours, that cage tightens. For nothing is secret that shall not be made manifest, neither anything hid that shall not be known and come abroad. Luke 8:17. They're suffocating under the weight of their own avoidance. You were the opportunity to evolve, to grow. But they rejected it. And now they're sitting in the dark, gasping for a version of peace that left the moment you did. Remember Anthony Bourdain, a man who inspired millions but carried an invisible war. His inner truth, though often masked, found its way into every sentence he spoke. Those who refused to understand the depth of his soul were left stunned by the fallout. Just like those who dismissed you, they didn't realize the cost of neglecting truth until it was too late. So what now, chosen one? Should you run back and save them from their own collapse? Should you dull your radiance to make their shadows feel less threatened? Absolutely not. They didn't just lose you, they lost the version of themselves that could have risen beside you. That's why the grief is unbearable. That's why the memories of you now come with heartache instead of healing. While you've been healing, they've been hiding. And now, there's no place left to hide. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. John 8:32. But the freedom they rejected is the burden they now carry. Every lie they told became a link in the chain they wear around their own soul. Every attempt to bury you only multiplied your presence. You don't haunt them because you're spiteful. You haunt them because your truth was the key, and they threw it away. They are no longer fighting you. They're fighting the after-image of what you represented. And the battlefield isn't out here anymore. It's inside them. Let them sit in their self-made silence. Let them flinch at every reminder. You are not the one unraveling. They are. And that's the real cost of lying about a chosen one. Look at Nina Simone, a voice born from the soul, a fire the industry tried to tame. She was too raw, too honest, too real for those who wanted palatable perfection. But her echo still sings through generations. She became the haunting melody for a truth the world wasn't ready to face, just like you are for them. So stop mourning the loss. Stop wishing they had seen your worth sooner. This was never about their ability to honor you. It was about your destiny revealing theirs. And now the reveal is burning them alive. You are no longer the one in pain. You are the prophecy fulfilled, the lesson etched in their conscience, the name they can't mention without trembling. Let them wrestle with the fire they buried, and you keep rising. Number 4, when truth hits the soul, there's no place left to hide. Chosen one, what do you think happens when someone tries to outrun a storm, only to realize the storm was never outside of them? That's what they're experiencing now. They didn't run from you, they ran from what you activated. But the storm didn't chase them through words or threats. It followed them in silence. It bloomed in every quiet moment when no one else was around to applaud their performance. Because you weren't just another chapter in their life. You were the mirror they couldn't break. And mirrors, no matter how long they're avoided, always reflect. This isn't just guilt they're dealing with. It's spiritual unrest. Not sadness, not regret. This is deeper. It's the slow, soul-rotting ache that comes when someone lies about the very thing their spirit knew was real. Tell me, how does someone sleep peacefully when they've betrayed their own alignment? What peace exists when truth is knocking louder than denial can hold? The universe doesn't bring chaos as revenge. It brings collapse to anything built on falsehood. And for them, that collapse has begun. They make ready their tongue like a bow to shoot lies. It is not by truth that they triumph in the land. Jeremiah 9:3. They convinced themselves that if they ignored what they felt for you long enough, it would disappear. But you weren't a shadow. You were never fleeting. You were presence. You were power. You were light they didn't know how to handle. And now, that light is what haunts them. Do they tell themselves you didn't matter, even now? Do they still try to erase your echo from their thoughts? Because if they do, why does your energy still sit heavy on their chest when the world goes quiet? Why does your name still burn behind their eyes when they hear someone speak with your same depth? They're not tormented by your departure. They're tormented by what they rejected when they had access to your soul. Every lie they told about you didn't float away. The universe caught it, stored it, and sent it back in doses, customized for their awakening. And those doses are painful. You see, betrayal against a chosen one isn't just about emotional dishonesty. It's a breach against divine order. When they denied you, they denied truth itself. And truth doesn't return gently. It returns with weight, with exposure, with reckoning. The Lord detests lying lips, but he delights in people who are trustworthy. Proverbs 12:22. Think of Robin Williams, beloved by millions, yet privately aching with battles the world didn't see. His truth was masked by performance, but eventually the pressure became too loud to contain. And that's the tragedy of all denial. It doesn't erase truth. It only delays its detonation. That's what they're feeling now. The mask has cracked. Their smile has faltered. And the weight of every unspoken word is sitting in their spirit like a judgment they can't run from. You weren't sent to destroy them. You were sent to reveal them. You didn't punish them with withdrawal. They punished themselves by failing to meet you with honesty. You stood rooted in truth while they chose shadows. And now, every room they walk into without you echoes with the sound of what could have been. Why does food taste dull now? Why does rest never come fully? Why does joy feel incomplete? Because when someone walks away from alignment, even blessings start to feel like burdens. Even in darkness, light dawns for the upright, for those who are gracious and compassionate and righteous. Psalm 112, verse 4. Chosen one, you didn't curse them. You were the cure they refused. And now the rejection of healing has become the source of their spiritual sickness. They can't see it clearly, but their soul knows it. That's why they avoid certain places. That's why your name is never mentioned unless it's forced out. That's why peace has packed its bags and moved out of their atmosphere. The universe didn't strike them down for hurting you. The collapse wasn't about vengeance. It was about balance. Truth demanded to be heard, and now that it's speaking, it won't stop. Think about Colin Kaepernick. His truth was uncomfortable, so the world tried to silence him. They took away opportunities, platforms, and tried to erase his voice. But truth doesn't vanish, it multiplies. And now, the very platform they tried to take has become a global conversation. You too are a message they tried to suppress. But instead of disappearing, your message is echoing through everything they touch. Do you still wonder if you were too intense, too different, too much for them to hold? Let me ask you this. If you were truly too much, why did their world start unraveling after you left? Why did silence get louder? Why did fake peace crumble? They didn't walk away from a problem. They walked away from a portal, a divine opportunity. And now, the storm they feared is raining down on the soil of their own choices. If we deliberately keep on sinning after we have received the knowledge of the truth, no sacrifice for sins is left. Hebrews 10:26. Look at Nina Simone. Her voice was raw truth, so real it made people uncomfortable. The industry labeled her difficult. But decades later, the world is still quoting her, singing her songs, learning from her fire. She was not born to be liked. She was born to wake people up, just like you. Your presence was never about popularity. It was about awakening. But awakenings are painful to those who sleep best in illusions. So let them sit with the fallout. Let them wear the crown of denial they forged themselves. They thought rejecting you would leave them lighter, but now they carry a weight no one can lift. They betrayed what was real. And reality doesn't take betrayal lightly. You were the shift. You were the divine alarm clock ringing in their delusion. And when they hit snooze, they unknowingly signed up for the consequence they're now facing. Let this truth settle deep in your soul. Your silence isn't passive. It's sacred. It's divine calibration. And the longer you rise, the more their illusions collapse. You didn't ask for this role. You were appointed to it, to be the trigger, the reflection, the revealer. And whether they accept it or not, your light exposed everything they tried to keep buried. They're not haunted by your memory. They're haunted by the version of themselves that could have lived if they had just chosen truth. But instead of alignment, they chose ego. Instead of honesty, they chose avoidance. And now their soul knows. You were never the mistake. You were the miracle. Chosen one, never again minimize your power. Never again water yourself down for those who drown in authenticity. They didn't walk away from you. They walked away from the exact healing they cried for in silence. Let them have their reckoning. You, keep rising. Because when you're chosen, the universe doesn't just guide you, it defends you. Number 5, the truth doesn't knock, it breaks the door down. Chosen one, have you ever felt a moment shift without saying a word? When your very presence caused something unseen to snap? That's not coincidence, that's not drama. That's truth stepping into a room where it's been denied for too long. They thought ignoring you would make your presence fade, that pretending you were insignificant would extinguish your light. But how can anyone extinguish a star? Stars don't dim just because eyes close. They burn even brighter in the dark. This wasn't just a fight. It was a spiritual eruption. It was the universe flipping the table, ripping the mask off every fake peace offering, and exposing the cost of denial. The explosion didn't come from one conversation. It had been building for years. It was a soul quake, born from the pressure of suppressed truth. How long can a lie survive when the truth is living, breathing, and standing right in front of them? They thought they could rewrite the story without the main character. But chosen one, you are the story, and truth will always demand its place on the page. For there is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, or hidden that will not be made known. Matthew 10:26. The tension wasn't about the argument that day. That was just the match. The real damage had already been planted in silence. Every fake smile, every time they rolled their eyes when your name was mentioned, every lie they told themselves to feel safe. They mocked your presence because they couldn't match your frequency. They minimized your energy because they couldn't replicate it. But truth doesn't fade with time. It intensifies. And when it finally arrives, it doesn't knock gently, it kicks the door down. Look at Britney Spears. The world watched her smile through years of quiet captivity, her spirit dimmed by control, her truth ignored. But when it finally broke through, it didn't whisper, it roared. The world saw what she had always been trying to express beneath the silence. Just like you, her truth didn't just show up, it tore the narrative apart. Now ask yourself, were you really too much? Or were you simply the truth they weren't ready to receive? Why did your presence make their hands fidget, their tone shift, their gaze drop? Because it's one thing to light others, it's another thing entirely to light yourself, and then be confronted by the walking, breathing truth of everything you pretended not to want. That was you. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. John 8:32. They tried to label your confidence as arrogance because it was easier than admitting they admired you. They called you intimidating because your spirit held weight they couldn't carry. They weren't fighting you. They were fighting the version of themselves they could no longer hide from. That eruption, the one where words became fists, where silence became screams, that wasn't chaos. It was clarity. It was every denied emotion erupting into the open. The mask fell, not because you pulled it off, but because it couldn't survive your truth. Think about Chadwick Boseman. In silence, he carried truth. Through pain, he served purpose. And even though many misread his distance as aloofness, his legacy proved otherwise. When truth stands tall, the world eventually catches up. They didn't understand his strength in the moment, but in time, they realized the depth of what they had in their presence. The same will be said of you. So why did they flinch when you entered the room? Why did conversations pause, glances dart, and air grow heavy? Because, chosen one, your energy doesn't just arrive, it reveals. You didn't confront them, your energy did. You didn't demand truth. They felt obligated to face it just by being near you. Your light didn't ask permission. It exposed every lie they tried to coat in sugar. That's why they were uncomfortable. That's why they collapsed under pressure. Because truth like yours doesn't whisper. It echoes. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1:5. They wanted to erase you because they couldn't unfeel you. They hoped ignoring your name would erase the imprint you left on their soul. But truth doesn't vanish. It multiplies. It shows up in other people's voices. It haunts conversations where your name is taboo. It returns in dreams, in memories, in mirrors, and they can't stop it, because truth doesn't need validation. It just needs time, and time has arrived. Consider Tupac Shakur, branded controversial, misunderstood by many, but he was a prophet wrapped in poetry, telling truths society tried to reject. Now his voice is quoted by movements, his lyrics still shaking systems. The same power lives in your presence. What they mocked will one day be repeated as wisdom. And here's what they'll never admit. It wasn't you that broke them. It was everything you triggered. You made them feel what they weren't ready to feel. Realness, vulnerability, longing, the ache of authenticity in a world of fiction. And instead of embracing it, they attacked it, because that was easier than evolving. But the universe doesn't allow falsehood to thrive indefinitely. What looks like sudden chaos to outsiders is actually alignment being restored. They thought they could control the narrative, but truth doesn't ask for permission to show up. It just does. And when it does, it doesn't just change the story, it changes the players. Therefore, each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbor, for we are all members of one body. Ephesians 4:25. So now they stand in the ruins asking, how did this happen? But you know exactly how. It happened when they kept choosing the lie, when they mocked what they didn't understand, when they rolled their eyes at the very presence that was sent to elevate them. They chose performance over purity, and now their stage has collapsed. And you were never the villain. You were the catalyst. You were what truth looks like when it walks into a room with no apology. You were the confirmation, the awakening, the storm dressed in stillness. You didn't have to defend yourself. Your energy testified. And now the verdict is in. Truth has broken through. The illusions have burned away. The narrative is no longer in their hands. And the world they tried to build without you is crumbling beneath the weight of everything they couldn't admit. So rise, chosen one, with no bitterness, with no regret, because you didn't lose them. They lost the version of themselves that could have evolved beside you. You were the clarity they weren't ready for. And when truth arrives with power, it doesn't just shift the liar, it shifts everything. Number 6. When the dust settled, you were still standing. Chosen one, have you ever stood in silence and watched the lies that tried to bury you collapse under their own weight? Did you notice how quickly the energy changed once the masks fell and truth entered the room? Isn't it strange how the ones who painted you as the villain were the first to panic when the light showed up? When the dust settled, you were still standing, not because you fought, but because you didn't have to. The truth didn't need your defense. It had its own assignment. It rose up, dragged every lie into the open, and left their narratives exposed for what they truly were. Fragile performances, now scorched by divine clarity. Have you realized yet that your silence wasn't weakness? It was strategy. Your stillness was the storm they never saw coming. You shall not fear them, for it is the Lord your God who fights for you. Deuteronomy 3:22. This is what happens when exposure hits. The stage they built with manipulation, fake alliances, and gossip collapsed under the weight of one undeniable force: truth. Do you remember how they wore confidence like a crown and indifference like armor? Where is it now? Because armor rusts under divine pressure, and crowns built on deceit always fall. They thought they were performing for the crowd, but didn't realize the universe was in the audience, and it never misses a detail. Think about Lance Armstrong, decorated, revered, and trusted, but when the truth came out, it didn't whisper. It shattered illusions. It destroyed reputations built on deceit. Isn't that the same energy you've witnessed now? What they tried to use to cover their shame has become the very fire consuming the image they tried to protect. And did you notice how you never had to lift a finger? How simply being aligned, centered, and authentic became your greatest defense. That's the sacred paradox of being chosen. Your proof doesn't come from reaction. It comes from remaining undeniable. Have you ever wondered why they kept watching you, even when they claimed to be done? Why your name kept coming up, even in rooms you'd left behind? The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 14:14. When truth arrives, it doesn't arrive politely. It doesn't knock, it floods. It tears through illusions and demands that everything false bow to its presence. So why were they surprised when the reckoning hit? Why did they scramble when the very lies they told were suddenly replaying in the minds of those who once believed them? Now the people who stood on the sidelines, unsure, silent, maybe even complicit, they saw it. They felt the shift. They witnessed the collapse. Have you noticed how some of them are looking at you differently now? How questions linger in their eyes? What did we really believe? Who were we really following? You didn't have to defend yourself. Truth broadcasted your name louder than you ever could. Consider Monica Lewinsky. For years she bore public shame, while others remained protected by silence and reputation. But truth has a way of circling back. She endured, she rose, and now she speaks with power. Her story became a warning to the world and a crown on her head. Isn't that the same arc you're walking now? But whoever listens to me will dwell secure and will be at ease, without dread of disaster. Proverbs 1:33. Now, they're scrambling to rewrite history, but how do you edit what everyone witnessed firsthand? They're trying to patch holes in a ship that's already underwater. Tell me, how do you fix a narrative that no longer holds power? And why do they still seem obsessed with the impact they once claimed didn't exist? They assumed your silence was retreat. But do you see now that silence was reverence? That it was God preparing the stage for the reveal? And what a reveal it was. The people who once entertained their drama now see them clearly. Every smug grin, every dismissive glance, every act of self-righteousness, they're etched permanently into the memory of the crowd, not as signs of strength, but as proof of their deception. Think of Brendan Fraser, once shunned, written off, and left behind by an industry that didn't value the truth he carried. But time and truth partnered together, and now he's not just back. He's honored. He's respected, he's celebrated. Isn't that what the universe is doing with you? And still they ask, how did we lose control of the narrative? But you know the answer, don't you? They lost it the moment they thought lies were stronger than alignment. The moment they underestimated the power of a chosen one who didn't flinch. Have you realized that your quiet confidence triggered a storm they were never equipped to weather? He brought me out into a spacious place. He rescued me because he delighted in me. Psalm 18:19. You didn't just survive the fire. You walked through it without even smelling like smoke. The evidence of divine protection is all over your life. They thought they had the upper hand, but who's still standing now? You weren't part of the chaos. You were the calm that revealed it. You weren't a piece in their performance. You were the energy that collapsed the stage. And every time they tried to explain what happened, do you notice how their voice shakes, how their version doesn't hold weight anymore. So, here's the final question. Are you ready to stop looking back? Are you ready to stand fully in the truth that vindicated you without you ever needing to speak? Let them sit in the ashes of the illusion they tried to protect. Let them wrestle with the silence they once weaponized. And you, stand taller, stand freer, because the truth has done what you never had to. It showed the world exactly who you are. Number 7. The fire was the test and you were meant to survive it. Chosen one, have you ever walked into a room and felt something shift immediately without saying a word? Did you ever wonder why people suddenly grew restless, anxious, or even combative in your presence? It's not your tone, not your posture. It's your frequency. It's what you carry. Because when truth walks in, the lies don't sit quietly. They tremble. This wasn't about drama or misunderstanding. This was a pressure test from heaven itself. A spiritual audit, designed with precision to see what would remain standing once the dust cleared. And guess what? You did. They weren't reacting to you. They were reacting to the collapse of their own internal illusions. Your energy didn't cause chaos. It revealed what was already chaotic beneath the surface. You were sent into their world not as a guest, but as a divine interruption. A lit match dropped in a room soaked in years of denial, and when it ignited, that explosion wasn't accidental. It was necessary. The lies were too loud, the pretense too thick, the performance too convincing. The truth had no choice but to roar. The fire will test the quality of each person's work. 1 Corinthians 3:13. You weren't just someone they encountered, you were the disruption that exposed everything they had built on illusion. Can you see now that this wasn't personal, it was spiritual? You didn't confront anyone, you simply stood in your truth, and that alone threatened what they weren't ready to confront in themselves. The anger, the deflection, the judgment, they weren't symptoms of your flaws, they were symptoms of your light. Think about Malala Yousafzai. She didn't go looking for conflict. She simply existed in her truth and refused to back down. And because of that, systems of oppression were shaken. Her voice, soft but full of clarity, exposed what fear had buried. And even though violence tried to silence her, her message only grew. Just like you, chosen one, her very existence was the test. So ask yourself, why do you feel like you've been placed in rooms where your peace stirs up storms? Why does your stillness provoke reactions you never asked for? It's because your presence is not passive. It's revelatory. You walk into a space, and things that were hidden begin clawing their way to the surface. Have you noticed how people start revealing themselves without you prompting them? That's not random. That's the test in motion. See, I have refined you, though not as silver. I have tested you in the furnace of affliction. Isaiah 48:10. You didn't just survive the fire, you were the fire. You were the trial sent to reveal truth, to divide light from darkness, to shake everything pretending to be stable. They couldn't keep pretending once you entered their space, because your alignment is sharp enough to slice through pretense. You are not aggressive, but truth, when it stands in silence, becomes the loudest voice in the room. That's why they erupted. That's why their reactions seemed irrational. You were the trigger, but they were the weapon. And when pressure meets falsehood, it always cracks. Remember John Lennon, his ideas, his music, his call for peace. They were too real for a world still hiding behind illusions. He didn't shout to be heard. His honesty did the work, and even now his energy lives on, reminding people of what they tried to ignore. Like you, he was a match that set fire to denial simply by existing. But let's not miss the deeper layer. This wasn't just a test for them, it was a test for you too, to see if you would bend under the weight of rejection, to find out if you would doubt yourself when your light exposed their darkness. Have you ever asked yourself, was I too much? Did you feel tempted to shrink, to apologize, to soften your edges just to make others comfortable? That was the real test. But you didn't fold. You remained. You stayed silent while the truth did what it was born to do: reveal. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life. James 1:12. This is what it means to be chosen. Your life will feel like an initiation. Your presence will disturb what's fake. And the people who haven't built themselves on truth will react, not because of who you are, but because of what you remind them of. You are a mirror that doesn't distort. You reflect reality. And some people aren't ready to see themselves clearly. Think of whistleblower Frances Haugen. She didn't leak secrets to destroy. She revealed them to hold systems accountable. And what followed? An eruption, not because she created the problem, but because she revealed it. You were the same, placed into environments not to cause trouble, but to reveal what could no longer be hidden. Have you ever wondered why the ones who attack you often crumble in confusion when you remain calm? Why their rage intensifies when you respond with silence? It's because you don't match their chaos. You expose it. You walk with such integrity that anything crooked is forced into view. That's why you were placed in that room, not to participate, but to divide, not to blend in, but to become the filter that separates illusion from alignment. The crucible for silver and the furnace for gold, but the Lord tests the heart. Proverbs 17:3. And now that the dust has settled, you're still here, stronger, clearer, unmoved. What they thought would break you only built you. What they tried to hide now haunts them. You passed the test, not by force, but by being immovable in your truth. You didn't retaliate. You didn't justify. You didn't beg. You let the energy speak, and it did. So let this moment confirm what your soul has always known. You are the test, not the punishment, not the attack, but the revelation. You were the soul quake they didn't see coming, and now they can never unsee what your presence revealed. You are the walking line between what was and what can no longer continue. You are the audit. You are the alarm clock. You are the one who proves by existing that truth is still alive and still shaking structures built on deception. Walk forward with that knowing. The fire didn't come to consume you. It came to confirm you. Number 8. The rise begins when the ash settles. Chosen one, have you ever noticed that the loudest storms often leave behind the clearest skies? That after the screaming ends, after the betrayal plays out, after the energy has exhausted itself, what's left behind isn't destruction, but revelation. That's where you are now. Not in the collapse, but in the clarity. You didn't swing back. You didn't scream louder. You simply stood still, and the mountain that was built against you crumbled on its own. You see, the power of being chosen isn't about domination. It's about presence. You didn't have to charge into the battlefield. You became the center of the storm by being exactly who you are. And while they scrambled to save face, twist the story, and run from the truth, you remained centered, unshaken, aligned, because your truth wasn't performance, it was position. And when something is rooted in divine position, nothing can uproot it. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. Psalm 46:10. Now that the chaos has passed and the dust is settling, are you starting to see things more clearly? Have you looked around and noticed who stayed close when your name was under attack, and who disappeared the moment your presence became inconvenient? This is not a season for confusion. It's a season of spiritual clarity. The universe just ran a diagnostic test through your entire environment, and now you have the blueprint. Not just for who people are, but for who you've become. Look at Nelson Mandela. He didn't have to raise his voice to expose injustice. His silence during years of imprisonment spoke louder than the systems that tried to silence him. When the smoke cleared, he stood, not just as a survivor, but as a symbol. His rise wasn't forged in shouting, it came through unshakable truth. The same energy lives in you. This was never about conflict, it was about refinement. You weren't being broken, you were being revealed. So let me ask you, do you see yourself differently now? Do you realize that the fire you thought came to destroy you was actually confirmation of your calling? After you have suffered a little while, God Himself will restore you and make you strong, firm, and steadfast. 1 Peter 5:10. Every person you thought was for you showed their hand. Some ran, some stayed. Some crumbled under the weight of the truth, and some pretended they never saw it. Pay attention, because you don't rebuild with confusion, you rebuild with clarity, and clarity doesn't beg people to return. It blesses those aligned to go forward with you. Think of the story of Howard Schultz, former CEO of Starbucks. At one point, the company was struggling, lost in overexpansion and diluted purpose. Schultz returned not with noise but with vision, and from the ashes of that collapse, he rebuilt something stronger, sharper, and more intentional. Just like you're about to. You're not starting from zero. You're starting from truth, from a version of yourself that's no longer trying to be understood, but simply walking in understanding. The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Psalm 118, verse 22. And here's the most powerful part. You didn't just survive this storm, you outlasted the lie. You exposed what couldn't hold up under divine pressure. You walked through slander, through silence, through sabotage, and you came out clean. No revenge, no retaliation, just revelation. Do you understand how rare that is? How dangerous your level of peace is to those who live in performance? Let's take a moment to reflect on Maya Moore, one of the greatest WNBA players of all time. At the peak of her career, she walked away from basketball to fight for the release of an innocent man. She didn't have to scream to be heard. Her stillness, her conviction, and her alignment shook the system. She returned not only with justice but with honor, because when you carry divine purpose, the lie can't outlast your truth. So let me ask you this. Now that the masks are on the floor, now that the truth has risen and exposed everything, are you ready to rebuild? Are you ready to construct something that's no longer entangled with shadows? This is your rise. And it doesn't come with noise, it comes with knowing. He raises the poor from the dust and lifts the needy from the ash heap. Psalm 113:7. The ash is settling, the fog is lifting, the illusions have burned away. And what remains isn't damage, it's clarity. You didn't destroy anything, you simply arrived, and everything false fell under the weight of your authenticity. You never had to prove your power. You were the proof. Let those who revealed themselves sit with their choices. That's not your burden to carry. Your role now is to protect what your stillness uncovered. You don't need to make peace with those who couldn't hold your truth. You just need to keep walking forward. Lighter, sharper, more aligned. Think of the rise of Keanu Reeves. Quiet, composed, deeply reflective. He has faced grief, loss, and misunderstanding, yet never folded. His reputation didn't scream, it stood, and now he's one of the most respected figures in the industry. Why? Because truth doesn't need to fight, it just needs to show up. And once it does, the false fades. Chosen one, you didn't just go through a storm. You became the stillness that revealed the storm's purpose. You weren't sent to destroy. You were sent to witness what couldn't survive truth. And now, on this side of the fire, you walk differently. You speak with deeper discernment. You trust with sharper eyes, because once you've seen the truth, you can never unsee it. So, if you ever doubt the power of your presence, remember this: you didn't move the mountain. You simply stood still, and it crumbled. That's what it means to be chosen. So now, the real journey begins. Not the fight for truth. It already won. Now comes the path forward, not rushed, not forced, just divinely opened. This isn't about proving anything anymore. You've already done that by standing through what was meant to break you. This is about walking with authority into the reality that was always waiting for you on the other side of exposure. You couldn't move into this next chapter while still entangled with people who pretended not to see you or situations that demanded you shrink. But now, the fog is gone. The illusions have collapsed, and all that's left is what's real. To everyone who's journeyed with this message, thank you, truly. Thank you for staying present. Thank you for holding space. Thank you for letting these words speak to your soul. Your presence here is not something I take lightly. If you feel moved to support this work and help it reach others, you can do so through Super Thanks. Every donation, no matter the size, is deeply appreciated. But whether you give or not, know this: you are valued, you are seen, and your energy is a blessing all by itself. So now, take a breath. Let this moment settle in your spirit. You didn't chase validation. You stood in truth. You didn't scream to be heard. You allowed the silence to prove your alignment. You didn't retaliate. You rose. And now you walk forward with more wisdom, more discernment, and more authority than ever before. You're not carrying confusion. You're carrying confirmation. I speak this blessing over you now. May your path stay clear of pretenders and filled with people who are built in truth. May your energy remain protected, your vision remain sharp, and your heart remain open only to what aligns with your calling. May everything that tried to delay you turn into the soil beneath your acceleration. And may you never again question the power of your presence, because you didn't just survive the fire, you were the reason the lies couldn't survive it. Your rise has begun. The universe is watching. Let it see you standing tall.